It's Friday, April 17th, 2020. Digital Trends Live is about to start. Here are some of the topics we're covering on today's episode of the show. The world is changing fast, and much like businesses, governments are trying to adapt to continue work as well, including a new plan from the UK to convene Parliament via Zoom. And we've got a phone leak, kind of. Based upon reports from multiple sources, a YouTuber has put together some pretty elaborate renderings of what could be the upcoming iPhone 12. Plus, there have been a number of really interesting technological innovations developing over the last few weeks, and Sarah Evans will join to recap some of them, including a drone that will disinfect. We'll also be joined by the CEO of Hive, Cedar Anderson, to talk not only about beekeeping, but also about the upcoming World Bee Day, in which everyone can participate in through the use of a unique app. All of that and more on today's episode of Digital Trends Live. And hello, everyone. This is Digital Trends Live. Thank you so much for joining us wherever you are. We appreciate it. Of course, we broadcast live here every weekday, 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern, bringing you trending tech headlines, news, interviews, discussions, and so much more. All we're broadcasting live across a number of different platforms. We're on Periscope, Twitter, Twitch, Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, Dailymotion, Apple News, 2 different mobile apps, a smart television app, and at digitaltrends.com/live. So wherever you're finding us, you can join in the conversations we get to have. We do appreciate it. I see a lot of people commenting on Facebook right now. A, about the cup. Yes, it is very deep. But B, we are going to bring you up to date on some technological news that we've got here. So let's get going here right out of the gate. We like to talk about how tech and the coronavirus fight are intersecting, but right now misinformation is certainly a big thing that's going on. And 5G was the biggest conspiracy theory that was out there in association with what could have caused COVID-19 or could be causing it. But now, according to a report from the New York Times and Signal Labs, 5G has been taken over by conspiracy theories about Bill Gates and Bill Gates' alleged role in this. So here's what's going on. I'm just going to give you some of the facts here. Based on this report, Bill Gates and the virus were mentioned 1.2 million times on TV and social media from February to April. That's 33% more than the second most popular conspiracy theory, which is 5G. It peaked at 18,000 mentions a day in April so far. The hoaxes are everything from the hoaxes directed at Bill Gates are everything from the fact that he created it so that he could sell the vaccine to all kinds of other ones that are going on out there. And there's a lot of them that are out there. I will say that I had an Uber driver about 6 weeks ago who was way ahead of the curve and told me that Bill Gates caused this, so I was a little bit in the know ahead of time. Here's the thing, though. This is what's going on. And what's happening is there is a lot of misinformation that's out there. And I think this is a very good chance to highlight why it's very important to verify your sources. There's naturally a lot of confusion that's going on. And I think making sure that where you're finding your information is very important. And there's a number of different sites that are trying to fix this. Facebook is going to be providing more information. There's all kinds of things that Google is doing, that Twitter is doing. But nonetheless, these things do proliferate pretty quick. And Bill Gates, right now, just to give you the news side of things, that is where we're at. Bill Gates is the number one conspiracy theory out there regarding how this all started. I'll just leave it at that. I will just say, again, you can check that article out. We've got something up at Digital Trends about this, too, and about all kinds of misinformation. That is out there, but that's where people are going right now. So that's something I feel like you needed to know, and you need to be aware of that, and just, again, verify sources. Make sure you know where you're getting your information from. But that is what's happening. That's according to that report. And speaking of scams, there's something else, too. There's naturally a lot of people out there that are trying to prey on people and fears right now, and Google has also just said this, that they've blocked over 18 million malware and phishing emails related to the coronavirus itself. So on top of that, they also blocked, they said 240 million daily spam messages that are linked to it. So a lot of people, naturally, this happens anytime you have something like this, or anytime that there's anything that could be where predators, online predators, could find a way to attack people. This is something that they're doing. So that's Google trying to stop that. So again, just to be aware of that, be careful on what links you're clicking on. Sometimes they're very, very good at tricking people into doing this, so just be very aware of that. There's also text ones going on. A lot of stuff, again, at digitaltrends.com. You can follow along and take a look at what some of the common ones are. So keeping you up to date with that. we're just bringing you on up to date with what is trending right now. Here's something else in relation to the coronavirus, and it is how governments are trying to figure out to interact with each other, to carry on with business as usual in the era of social distancing that we are living in right now. And the UK is planning to convene Parliament via Zoom. This is what one of the plans that are going out right now. So they do have to vote on this on Monday to approve it. But if it does happen, they're going to use Zoom and several large video screens placed around the House of Commons so that a certain number of the lawmakers could be in attendance as long as they're spaced out, but then up to 120 at a time could join via Zoom. Now, I like this idea of utilizing things to make sure that governments can continue to operate. I do think it's going to be a very interesting broadcast to see 120 UK parliamentary lawmakers all trying to talk over each other in one Zoom channel. That's probably they're going to have some kind of order to it, but that could be must-see TV just to see how they're going to be doing this. But that is what we're doing right now, so that's something else to bring you up to date with. So there you go. That's kind of your up-to-date information in association with coronavirus and tech. You can find out more at digitaltrends.com. Let's continue on with some other things, though. We do have actual products that have been released. We had the iPhone SE that came out earlier this week. It was announced by Apple, but the iPhone 12 is allegedly still on schedule to come out later on this year. And we have our first renderings that do look pretty good. So this has to do with reports that it came from Bloomberg and other reports that have been out there for quite a while based upon what the iPhone 12 could look like. So these renderings are pretty good. So with this one, it's got a fourth camera sensor on the back. It's got an increased diameter of the camera lens, again, according to these renderings. Thicker antenna lines for 5G. It's got a SIM card. The SIM card's relocated on it. It's got allegedly louder speakers. It does have the notch at the top, but this is what we're looking at, and it would have the A14 chip. So that would be the new chip that would be going in there. So right now the A13 is what's going to be going in the iPhone SE. But that's what we're seeing. So again, that's the iPhone 12. Some of the leaks and then renders based upon that. That LiDAR camera is something that we have been anticipating that this would have, which would be an interesting use case. The theory is that that's going to be for a lot more augmented reality functions. But we do have a write-up about this and speculation about the iPhone 12 at digitaltrends.com, so you can go there and take a look if you want to get into more details about what we're anticipating. But again, as of now, usually Apple would be releasing that phone in September. We think that's still on track. It's hard to say, of course. There's certainly issues with the supply chain right now, but that's what we're anticipating. So it's fun to kind of take a look at that and imagine what it's going to look like. So that's the iPhone 12. Continuing on here. Again, with just some trending news, then we have our interviews coming up here shortly, and thank you, everybody, for joining us wherever you are. This is something that is going to be happening when we do get athletics back up, when sports does happen again, when the NBA returns. They're going to be partnering with Microsoft for a new way to broadcast the games, and I think this is an interesting intersection here of sports and technology. It's going to be called the DTC platform, and what it's going to do is it's going to combine artificial intelligence with the way that you watch the game so that the platform, combined with Microsoft's AI, would actually learn what each fan likes. So as you're watching it, it would be able to determine what kind of angles you like. You would even get different audio channels, perhaps even bringing in some different gaming tools so that you could either game along with the game or listen to perhaps Twitch channels broadcast the game. There's a lot of different things that they could do with it. They also want to integrate merchandise, tickets, League Pass, and even have badges, much like a game, to where, we don't know exactly how they'll work, but it would be something where if you watch a game a certain amount of times, you could get a badge for it, and that would go onto your avatar. So it's an interesting platform. The NBA has always been kind of ahead of the game with a lot of that stuff. They aren't afraid to adopt some technology, so that's something that's an interesting thing. And again, we've got that at digitaltrends.com. You can take a look there. So when sports do start back up, things will be changing. I think definitely as we see a lot of athletic leagues start to adapt online gaming in a much bigger manner right now to try to overcome what's going on, I think some of that's going to bleed through and that's going to change it going forward. So you can take a look at that at digitaltrends.com. Final thing I want to do here, and I realize that we're running out of time, so I do need to get to moving here. There's a lot to talk about. It is the 50th anniversary of the Apollo 13 landing, and coincidentally, today we had 3 astronauts who actually returned to Earth from the International Space Station. One of them had actually been up there since July of 2019. So it's a different world that they're returning to. So but they were able to successfully bring them back down. They landed here today. They are going into quarantine, which they naturally would be kind of separated for a while, but they're going to be separated for a long time now. So it's the 50th anniversary of that. There's a lot of information at digitaltrends.com. You can go there, take a look at it. There's also a Twitter handle that is live tweeting as though Apollo 13 were happening right now. So it's kind of an interesting follow-up. But if you're looking for something to take your mind off of things here on Earth, look up to space and follow along with Apollo 13. And of course, you can read all about that mission that they just returned from at digitaltrends.com.
Hey, I'm going to let you in on a little secret. It's now time for the product of the day.
All right, our product of the day is this. It's the TCL 50-inch Class LED 4 Series 2160p Smart 4K UHD TV with HDR and Roku. There's a lot that I just said right there. So this is a 50-inch television. It's got 2160p resolution. If you're unfamiliar with the TCL brand, they're great. We consistently review them very highly. This has pretty much everything you'd want on it, I would think. 4K, it's got HDR, it's got full HD, it's got Ultra HD, it's got Roku built into it, and it's got, let's see, advanced TV sound, 2 8-watt main channel speakers, 3 HDMI inputs, a USB input. It even has a V-chip built in so you can control the content for your kids. There's a lot that you can do right there, and that is again, the TCL 50-inch. That is what our product of the day is. You can take a look at that right there at the link that's below me. It's a pretty good deal going on right now, and you just need to click that link to find out what it is and see if you can pick yourself up a TCL 50-inch TV. That's our product of the day. All right, I need to get to a break, and I want to say, again, thank you to everybody joining in. Dennis, happy birthday. I see that's your birthday there on Facebook, so thanks everybody for joining us, and we've got a lot to talk about. We're going to talk about some technological innovations coming up next, though, because we've got Sarah Evans coming, and there's certainly some interesting things that are being developed, including a drone that can disinfect rooms. That's part of what we'll discuss next, so stick around. Back here in a minute with more Digital Trends Live. Welcome back to Digital Trends Live. I'm Greg Nibbler. Again, thank you everyone for joining us wherever you are. We appreciate it, and we have lots to talk about. So certainly during this pandemic that we're all enduring, we've seen some pretty interesting technological innovations. And to talk about that right now from 7 Strategy, we have Sarah Evans, who's joining us to bring us up to date on some specific ones that have been happening. And Sarah, first off, thank you for joining us. Appreciate you being back here on the show as we're all in quarantine right now. But definitely some interesting innovations going on. Which one would you like to talk about first?
I'd love to talk about drones and what they're doing to actually help combat COVID-19. And as we go longer into this global pandemic, I know we're going to see more innovations, but the first one is from Digital Airless. They're a company who pivoted quickly to create a new product to help disinfect against COVID-19. So they have a UVC light disinfectant drone that can be used in indoor spaces. And this is the first of its kind technology. Typically, drones cannot fly indoors. They can't fly near anything metal, and they use a different sort of technology. They're not using GPS or sensors. They're using deep space tech, and they're able to fly indoor and actually do mass disinfection. So it's really important. And the most important thing for this, for companies like them, is getting them awareness and to market so that it can actually get to work.
Yeah, you see something like that, you certainly could figure out a lot of use cases, to keep people safe, to bring something like that in. And we've seen some different robotics that are being used. So this one, it's the Airtos. I'm not sure if I'm saying it correctly, but it looks like that's what this Airtos 120 UVC
120.
indoor disinfection drone. So with something like this, how long do you think it would take before something like this could be on the market? Is this something that they could actually get out?
This one actually is. They're actually available through the CDW website, so it's actually available into market, so people can use it. I just think in this genre of disinfectant ideation that's happening, it's important to get things to market and to give the awareness, because many times when you're pitching stories or trying to get things like this awareness, they'll say, well, who's using it and what are the success stories? But it's a double-edged sword, because you actually have to get it to be able to test in places.
Right. Yeah, and things are happening so fast. This is something that, anything that can help. That's really interesting, and certainly a use of technology that you can see going forward, being applied to a lot of different things. Okay,
we're
let's
going
talk
to need
about
this
some
for
other ones,
a long
really
time.
Interesting innovations.
Yeah,
100%. What's the next one you want to bring up?
I want to talk about the MIT face shield. It's something I've seen covered a few places. If we know anything right now, we've had a shortage of PPE, the personal protection equipment. Basic access has been an issue for the past month. I've even had requests from doctors and healthcare officials from around the country looking for donations of two-way cameras, simply because PPE, they don't want to waste it walking into patient rooms. So an amazing team at MIT went through 28 iterations to come up with this face shield. It's made from cheap, accessible materials. It's designed to be worn over a mask so you can prolong the life of it. A factory is actually now making about 100,000 of these a day, and they're extremely inexpensive to make at $2.79 per shield.
Wow.
So this is really fascinating.
Yeah, that really is. So yeah, they can make up to 100,000 a day, and that's, again, bringing an institution like MIT into this. That, I think that's great, because you have all of that, all those people that can work on this. So PPE, again, so let's see, I'm taking a look at it right now. So 100,000 a day, $2.79 per shield. That's I got to think that's pretty cheap comparatively compared to what it could be. So that's a great innovation right there. So
and it gives
MIT,
longevity to the mask.
Face shield design. Have these been actually getting out into the market yet?
Yes. So they're actually seeing them being used, which is amazing. And the more they can create, the more we can hopefully reduce the amount of PPE masks being wasted simply walking in and out of patient rooms.
Yeah, and again, like you said, we're going to be needing these for a long time. So that's great that we're figuring out some ways to get these out to people. And let's do one more here. I know deliveries have been huge, and we've been seeing a lot of innovation in that field, but there's something specifically that Instacart and Costco are doing, I understand?
Yes, love what they're doing with medicine delivery. And personally, I've been an Instacart customer for years, and we're exclusively using them for delivery along with other food delivery services right now. So it's something that we do to keep our family safe. So they've now, it's actually an idea they were testing out in November, and it's available in 7 states and Washington, D.C. So you can actually order your medicine, if you're a Costco customer, to be picked up for you. But the cool thing about this is you can also order your household goods or groceries. What I like most about this model is that we're going to reduce sick people going out into public. Sure, there are people who have regular monthly prescriptions that they need, but if you're ill, you can order this for pickup and then get all of the other necessities you need to prevent you going in public and spreading anything that you have, especially if you have COVID-19. You may be wondering how they verify identity. You have to have your ID scanned regardless of anything that happens with prescriptions, but you can request contactless delivery instead of a signature. And I know that Instacart right now is hiring hundreds of thousands of shoppers. And I believe last week they saw a 400% increase in orders.
Wow. Yeah, I did see that they're hiring a lot. Amazon's hiring a lot, but that's something that, again, once we do get out of this, I could see that being really advantageous for a lot of people who just maybe can't get out there to go get their prescriptions no matter what. And it is important to remember we are all still living here. There are normal health concerns that are still happening, despite all of this. So this is a really, really important development there to make sure that people can get all of that. And so again, that's
I've said even during flu season. Even flu, keeping people from going out.
Right? Yeah. I mean, this is something that could be really helpful for a lot of people. So all three of these are really great. So I want to say thank you, too, for showcasing some of this. It's kind of fascinating to see, despite how bad this is, just what we can actually see happening, what is coming out of it, and how people are coming together and figuring out different ways to overcome some things. And so for everybody who wants to follow you, too, because you're following along with all of this, where should we send them? Where should they follow you?
You can go to Twitter. My handle is @PRSarahEvans, and I've been putting together lots of curated lists, like media covering COVID-19, local lists, coronavirus topics, to create resources for folks to help them follow along.
Nice. Well, thank you so much. It's always nice to have you here on the show. Appreciate it. Stay safe, and I'm sure we'll be talking to you soon.
You too. Thank you.
All right, so definitely some interesting developments right there, right? A drone that can disinfect. You got Instacart and Costco teaming up, and then those MIT face shields. So really, really fascinating things. And thank you to everybody who's joining us here, wherever you are. Coming up next, though, we're going to take a sidestep out from coronavirus. And we all know about deepfake videos, right? Well, what about deepfake audio? There are some developments in that are interesting and also terrifying. And as a broadcaster, I don't know if I want it to happen or not. But regardless, we're going to be discussing that next. So stick around. Back in a minute with more Digital Trends Live. Hello, this is Digital Trends Live. Thanks for joining us. Whatever platform you're on, we appreciate it. We're here every single weekday bringing you tech news, interviews, headlines, and discussions. We're going to talk about some future technology that is here now. So certainly deepfake videos are something we're all familiar with at this point. But what about deepfake audio? That is a pretty interesting development that is happening right now. And of course, to talk about that, we have none other than the one and only Luke Dormel, who's joining us in quarantine. Luke, thanks for joining us here. I hope you're doing well. But what is going on here with deepfake audio?
Yeah, likewise. Hope you're also doing well. And just as if we needed another thing to worry about here in 2020, it had been uneventful enough that it's not just lockdown. It's not just concern about deepfake altering videos. We now have, as you say, deepfake audio. So essentially, this is pretty self-explanatory. This is the idea of developing sort of audio synthetic voices. So a little bit like we have, Siri, we're kind of used to those computer voices, but you're able to make voices which sound like recognizable human beings, both in terms of the sort of the accent and the way that the voice sounds, but also increasingly things like emotion and tone and all of the other things which sort of immediately mark a voice out as sounding kind of recognizably human. So the article that you're referring to is a piece that I wrote for Digital Trends this week about a company called Lovo Studio, which is really developing these tools which, again, create synthesized voices. They kind of have a variety of different use cases. They can create customized synthesized voices. They have a sort of a bank of existing ones. And then their claim to fame is that they've sort of found ways of making them sound more compellingly human by, as I say, incorporating things like tone and sort of pitch and all of the things, again, which kind of make a voice sound less synthetic and more realistic.
Right, and even adding in, flubs and things like that to make it sound like it's an actual person talking, which is, I mean, I guess when you look at it if it's going to be applied to something like a home assistant or one of those kinds of things, that's something that probably people will want. I mean, I know Google had a bunch of that they were doing to make voices sound more human, but the deep fake side of things is what concerns me, especially just looking at how politics have been over the last several years and deepfake video, what a concern that is. But if you can deepfake somebody's audio, I feel like that's going to be really hard for people to discern, what's real and what's not if they're getting so good at it.
For sure. And at least this isn't happening in an election year where it could be really problematic. But no, right. You're quite right. The company, again, I should say that one of the things that they're doing is obviously talking about the very positive use cases of this technology. And there are a bunch of things which could be really, really good about this. So, for example, they talk about, imagine you could have a kind of a radio ad on Spotify that calls out every user by name. And that would be, sort of millions of variations, but it would be possible to do very, very easily using this technology. You could have teachers that are able to kind of clone their voices and turn courses into kind of audio files customized to each student. There are all sorts of ways this could be kind of useful. Someone who's maybe kind of losing their voice due to a medical condition would be able to continue, sorry, I had something in my eye, continue kind of record their voice and then have that sort of synthesized. So there are lots and lots of positive applications of this. As you say, though, there are obviously concerns, particularly when you combine this with sort of video-based deepfake technology, where not only then do you sort of have the video of someone saying something, but then you can also synthesize the audio to make it sound like they have said something, and that's of course incredibly concerning from a sort of a deep news, a sort of fake news perspective.
Right. I mean, and actually, we've got some queued up here, too, just some examples just to play for everybody if we want to go ahead and roll some of those.
Looking for a new set of wheels but have to trade in your old ones first? We've got cars of all shapes and sizes listed on the web, including vintage cars, family vans, and sports cars.
Are visions of sugar plums dancing in your head?
We wish you all the love and happiness this season can bring, and may it follow you throughout the coming new year.
Does your child have difficulty reading? Is mathematics a thorn in their side?
Okay.
Our certified teachers are ready to help your son or daughter conquer their fears of reading, writing, arithmetic, and more.
I'd reached the point where I didn't know.
All right, so yeah,
For sure.
seeing there, and then
Sorry.
even if it continues on too, they do like an Elton John one and a Nelson Mandela one. But yeah, what do you want to say here about this? Sorry.
Yeah, again, I would recommend that anyone listening to this go and check out the article, because there are some kind of interesting the Nelson Mandela and the Elton John examples, I think, are particularly kind of good illustrations of this technology in action, because of course we're so used to hearing the human voice that it's very easy then to sort of spot the strengths and the weaknesses of the synthetic voice. As you could probably hear from some of those examples, it's not quite perfect yet. There is kind of a stuttery element to the digital voices in some cases. But, you know, like a lot of these technologies, just like deepfake video, you know, when you first saw this probably a couple of years ago, it didn't look as compellingly realistic as it does now. So I think that even though at the moment there are kind of, sort of challenges with this technology in certain use cases, these will get better and better all the time, which is, obviously either concerning or exciting, depending on which side of the spectrum you come down on.
Right. I mean, it's both. It's both, I suppose, you know, both exciting and terrifying. I mean, as somebody who is a broadcaster, I guess I don't know if this is good or bad for me. I'm not sure which side I'm supposed to look at it, but it is what they're developing. So again, and this article's up at Digital Trends right now. I encourage everybody to go there and you can listen to some more of the examples, but it's something else, you know, going forward combined with the deepfake video, that we're going to be seeing more of this AI audio out there. Well, Luke, I want to say thank you as always for joining us to talk about this. You've got so many fascinating articles at Digital Trends, and I'm sure we'll be talking to you soon. So stay safe and have a good one.
Likewise. Thank you so much.
That is Luke Dormel. So again, check that out, digitaltrends.com, and you can read that article. Really interesting stuff. All right, continuing on here. We've got more, though, to talk about, and I want to say thank you to everybody who's joining us on whatever platform you are watching on. Join in, hit subscribe, share the show. Up next, we're talking about beehives. Actually, we've got the CEO of Hive who's going to be joining us, and that is Cedar Anderson, to talk about something they've got going on, and also coming up here on May 1st, something else that we're going to be, that you can participate in. So that's coming up next. So stick around back here in a minute with more Digital Trends Live. Hello, everyone. This is Digital Trends Live. Thanks for joining us wherever you are. We appreciate it. Hit that subscribe button, share the show, let other people know about it because we're here every single weekday bringing you tech headlines, news, interviews, and discussions. And right now, we're going to have a discussion about beehives, in particular with Hive. Now, I want to highlight this right now. Hive, when they launched in 2015, in February of 2015, they became the most successful campaign ever launched on any platform outside the United States on Indiegogo with $12.3 million in pre-orders. That is phenomenal. Joining us right now, we have the co-founder and CEO, Cedar Anderson's here. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you very much for having me.
Can you walk through for everybody who may not know what exactly Hive is and what inspired you to create this product?
So basically, I was running a small commercial apiary where I was harvesting honey and taking that honey to the local shops and selling it by the bucketful. And what I found was it was an incredible amount of labor and a lot of sticky, messy, hard work and a disturbance to the bees to go through that traditional process of pulling the hive apart and taking those frames for processing. And I thought there must be a simpler way where we can just turn a tap and the honey flows directly out of the hive, like you can see just over here, and into your jar. So basically, it was a very simple idea that took a decade to perfect.
And this is something that now everybody can purchase and utilize. So for people out there, I mean, obviously the $12.3 million in backing for that first round, clearly people had a lot of interest. So somebody could take this and put this in their backyard. Is that essentially, am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, that's correct. So our invention makes the honey harvesting a lot easier. It's gone from all of that conventional process that you're seeing on the screen now into a process of literally turning a tap and the honey coming out of the hive. However, looking after the bees is still something you need to do and still a responsibility of the beekeeper, and it's the same as it's always has been.
And that to speak to that, I know certainly we're aware of some of the issues around honeybees and pollinators and how important they are, but raising, actually, I don't know if raising the bees was that the right term? Raising bees, keeping a beehive, keeping a hive. What are some of the benefits of that for people who take advantage of this?
So the benefits are basically twofold. One is there's the environmental benefits. If you keep a hive, then you're taking part in an amazing thing we call pollination, where a hive like this can pollinate 50 million flowers a day, which is a really important part of our whole system, both just for the trees and plants to produce their seed, but also for our agriculture and our food. And a third of things on the supermarket shelf are said to be directly pollinated by bees. So it's so important there, but also for the amazing thing of being able to have something in your backyard that can produce real produce. So it's amazing for people to have that learning experience with their family, to be able to enjoy the process of keeping bees. There's windows on the side for people to look into that world of bees and learn, and then you get this beautiful reward of honey if you look after the bees.
What is the learning curve from going from zero to being able to collect honey from a hive in your backyard?
So about half of our now 75,000 plus orders from 130 countries around the world are brand new to beekeeping. So what we've done is create a whole lot of training material. So lots and lots of digital material people can sink their teeth into, learn all the things they need to do to look after the bees. And we've taken it one step further recently and started the beekeeper.org, which is a online course for people to learn from square one, and it's designed to take you through from knowing nothing into a very knowledgeable beekeeper.
Especially right now as we're living through, the pandemic and quarantine and everything that's going on with this, I would think this would be something that would be of a lot of interest for a lot of people to actually try something like this out and actually get involved with that, and not only do that, but help with the pollinators. And to that end, I wanted to have you kind of walk through what World Bee Day is and when that's coming up and how it is that people can get involved with that.
Okay, you can get involved with World Bee Day in all sorts of ways. We're actually running a collaboration where we're encouraging people to get out in the garden and take photos of bees in their garden so we can build a data set of what's happening around the world with not only honeybees, but all of the other little pollinators as well. There's about 20,000 native pollinators in your backyard. And part of our company's mission is to support pollinators and bees all around the world. So we're constantly trying to find ways that we can do that.
And so World Bee Day on May 1st, what's going to be happening is that apparently there's going to be a smartphone app that's going to be coming out. Can you talk to us about that smartphone app and how it's going to work for people that want to get involved with this?
So basically you'll get the app, it'll be quite a simple process. Then you can walk out into your garden. We'll have a few how-tos on how to take a good photo of a bee, and you simply take photos of those pollinating insects in your yard, upload it to the app, and that is helping the world understand what's going on, because we're losing species of bees all the time, and it's in some cases we don't even know that we've lost them. So if we can build that data set, it's a very helpful thing to do.
And that's something that anybody can do, like you said, just walking outside and taking a picture. And so it's May 1st is when the app is available. So World Bee Count app, and that's what it's going to be called. Just taking a look here, and then is that, if that's right, May 1st I think is when it's available, and then everybody can upload their pictures, and then with that you'll get what's being called the global pollinator map, and then you can take that data and understand a lot more about what's going on.
Yeah, that's correct, and hopefully if we keep doing this kind of thing, we can really help by helping our understanding, and then start to really map the factors that are impinging on the bees. They're quite a sensitive insect, and it doesn't take too much to disturb them when they've got to fly 10 kilometers, collect that nectar and pollen, and fly home again to the beehive. So it's important work, and hopefully we can all help.
Well, I think that's great, and anything that people can, making it accessible for people to actually help out with something like that is really, really cool. So this World Bee Day, and honeyflow.com, would that be the best website to send people to who want to find out more information?
Absolutely. Honeyflow.com, you can have a look there. You can have a look at our beehives, have a look at the technology and understand what it does. You can learn about bees. We've got endless videos there. So fantastic place to go to really sink your teeth into and see whether keeping a flow hive in your backyard is right for you.
I'm definitely interested now. I would want to learn a lot before I got into it, but it sounds like all the information's right there. Well, Cedar, thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate it very much. So World Bee Day coming up May 1st. Everybody can help out with that. Get the app. Check out honeyflow.com. Thanks a lot, Cedar.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much for all the support of people around the world. We're seeing a real trend of people getting out into their garden, wanting to plant new things and get beehives in their garden. So it's amazing, very challenging times, but fantastic to see people getting out into their garden.
Definitely. Well, thank you very much. Appreciate it. So again, that's Cedar Anderson there from honeyflow.com. So you can go there and take a look at that and check out everything that they're doing. That's fascinating. A fascinating use of technology to kind of reinvent something that wasn't working well before. So coming up next, we've got, tech briefs here in just a few. We're going to have Yeung joining us. But before we do that, we've got another video from Caleb Denison, I believe, who's going to be showcasing some TV technology fails. So that's going to be happening next. So stick around. Back in a minute with more Digital Trends Live.
Remember these? Well, if you don't, this is a Laserdisc. And back in the day, these were awesome. Digitally stored, high quality video and digital audio. I was way into these when I was younger. Unfortunately, the Laserdisc never quite caught on because in-swoop DVDs, and well, you can see why these just stomped on the Laserdisc. Hey, I'm Caleb Denison for Digital Trends, and I bring up the demise of the Laserdisc because history is littered with TV tech just like this that seemed like a good idea at the time, but failed miserably. So here's my list of awesome TV and home video fails. I think we've got to start with Beta versus VHS. Beta was Sony's baby, and in many ways it was superior, but along came VHS for one of the most notable format wars in history, and VHS won by a landslide. The reason why? Well, we're keeping this video family friendly, so if you really want to look that up, knock yourself out. Next on my list is rear projection TVs. So many of us remember how big CRT TVs were. They were super deep because of the cathode ray tube that they used, but the screens never got larger than about 36 inches. Okay, technically there was a 45 inch, but nobody bought them. Anyway, the solution for a bigger TV, rear projection. These things were huge, and that's because they had tricolor projection guns in the back, shining up on basically a projection screen housed in a cabinet. They were notorious for getting out of alignment, so the color got screwy and the picture got blurry, and it took a pro to come fix it at your house. Thankfully, plasma and LCD screens came along and started boosting screen sizes in a hurry. Oh, an honorable mention here goes to widescreen CRT TVs, which were barely a thing thanks to plasma and LCD. Next is HD DVD. You may remember that HD DVD was spearheaded by Toshiba and adopted by the Xbox in the form of an add-on player. HD DVD faced off with Blu-ray, which was supported by Sony and others and ultimately adopted by PlayStation. Like Beta, HD DVD had a couple of advantages, notably players were a little less expensive, but Blu-ray won in the end because more movie studios ended up backing it. Next, 3D TVs. Now, I know some of you feel a certain kind of way about 3D and TV. I still get questions to this day around, can it do 3D? Well, the problem is 3D on TVs always kind of sucked. Plus, there were two different versions competing with each other, and ultimately so few people bought any 3D TVs that manufacturers just gave up, although not without a fight. Part of the problem with 3D TV is that it came in two flavors, active and passive. Active 3D required the use of special glasses that had to be powered with batteries. There were LCD crystals in the glasses which would alternate blocking out the image to each eye. This darkened the image but kept the resolution. And crosstalk, basically a blurry double image, was also a problem. Then there were passive, which used polarized lenses, kind of like what you get in the movie theater. The problem here is that since the TV only produced half of the lines per frame, you were cutting the resolution in half. Now 4K TVs made passive 3D way better, but by the time they came around, it was really just too late. Next on my list is curved TVs. You probably remember these because they're not that old. Samsung and LG in particular pushed curved TVs hard, and I think it's because they really needed something new at the time to get people excited. I mean, 3D was recently dead. So they pitched them as being more immersive, bringing the edges of the TV closer to the same distance as the center of the TV was from the eyes. There were even motorized TVs that went from flat to curved and back, but the promise was bigger than the delivery. And ultimately, like 3D TVs, curved TVs began to disappear. Today, I think Samsung has like one curved TV model you can buy, and that's about it. Now, right around the same time, TV makers began toying around with making 21:9 aspect ratio TVs, which is the next entry on this list. 21:9, also known as CinemaScope or Cinewide, aimed to get rid of the black bars on the top and bottom of theatrical movie releases, which weren't shot in 16:9 aspect ratio. This way, the image filled the entire screen. It was awesome for movie buffs, but it did not work so well for HD TV since it had to put black bars on the sides of the image to preserve the original aspect ratio. Also, these TVs were crazy expensive, and because they were so niche and nobody seemed to want to trade one set of black bars for another, this idea quickly faded. Now let's talk about cameras in TVs. Cameras in TVs may actually stage a comeback, but when they were originally deployed, they were ahead of their time and a huge security liability. The cameras were there primarily for gesture control, which we'll get to next, and also video conferencing, for which there weren't any solid apps at the time. Also, folks didn't take too kindly to the idea of having a camera in their living room or bedroom at the time. And when it was proved that these cameras were easily hacked, that was it. Cameras quickly disappeared. Today, we tend to be more accepting with having cameras in the home, so we may see them come back. I'm still not sold on it being a good idea though. As promised, next is gesture control. The idea here is that you could use certain motions to turn up the volume, change channels, that sort of thing. More clever uses of the tech allowed people to play games. Here's me playing Angry Birds, for instance. But the gesture controls just didn't work very well. I mean, the Xbox Kinect died too, for a reason, and paired with the fact that cameras on TVs were not a well-received idea, they quickly died. Next up is voice control. Sure, voice control works okay now, but the first version of it, developed by TV manufacturers, was horrible. In some cases, it still is. Bixby. But it took Apple, Amazon, and Google to make voice control not only work, but become so ubiquitous that folks started getting used to using it. Now, Roku and LG have genuinely useful voice search and control, and I see this getting even better in the future. So, not a huge fail in the end, but it took a big fail in order for it to come back.
Welcome back to Digital Trends Live. Thanks to Caleb for that package, and thank you to everybody who's joining us wherever you are. We do appreciate it. Of course, hit that subscribe button. But it's Friday, which means it's now time for another edition of Tech Briefs, where myself, Greg Nibbler, and Ken Yeung, the technology editor for Flipboard, try to bring you up to date with some of the biggest news in tech in about 10 minutes. And there's a lot to cover today. We even have some breaking news we're going to have here at the end of this segment. But to start off, Ken, hello.
Hey, Greg. Nice to see you again.
Good to see you as well. And let's get started here. Let's talk about the products first. We actually got some product releases this week, which is nice during all the turmoil that we've seen and all of the conventions and all the events that were canceled. These companies do still have products, and we have Apple leading it off right here with the iPhone SE, something that was rumored for a long time, coming in at $399. It's available for pre-order, and this is something that people were anticipating for quite some time.
Right, and the coronavirus pandemic is not going to stop tech companies from rolling out their products. And this is probably the first major smartphone to come out this year in the midst of COVID-19. And look, this is the second generation of the small budget-friendly iPhone. The first one came out in 2016, and now this one is coming out but it's very similar, but it packs the punch of what you get with the new basically with an iPhone 11, iPhone 8 to an iPhone 11. So it's pretty spot on, pretty modern. So obviously you get water resistance, you have wireless charging, you get a faster Apple's A13 processor, and all for just $399, starting price of $399. You can start pre-ordering it today, and it's what people want. You don't get this massive smartphone, these new phablets, and the price that you pay for them. You could get something very compact. Some people will like the compact phone. The original iPhone SE really did well in terms of the people's preference for the size, and so this is actually probably going to do pretty well. And if you want something that's modern, like the latest, but not all the bells and whistles, this is probably going to be a good iOS device for you.
Yeah, it's something, like you said, a lot of people have been anticipating this and wanting this, and it's nice that Apple is going back to this and having kind of a lower end for them model that's out, but still has pretty good processing power, an A13 chip in it. I mean, that's pretty great. So you've got that, the Apple iPhone SE. Going quickly through these, you also had OnePlus, which came out with theirs at the beginning of the week, OnePlus 8, OnePlus 8 Pro, which we've actually reviewed pretty well. Our own Andy Boxall here at Digital Trends reviewed it. He said it was fast, it had a really great battery life. And again, this is just kind of another entrance into the phone market and somebody else bringing these in, and they are going to be more widely available now. OnePlus has been around for a while, but not necessarily widely available, but they're forming some more partnerships, so you're going to see more of these phones getting out there as well.
Right, and it's interesting to know, as I was doing a little bit more research on the OnePlus 8, it turns out like right now they're already sold out. This device is already sold out, so that's kind of that has to be telling you something about this phone. And look, this is complete night and day between the OnePlus 8 and the iPhone. I mean, it's apples and oranges. One's iOS, one's Android, obviously. OnePlus 8 is all 5G supported, right? iPhone SE is not 5G. So but it's interesting. It depends on what carrier you have in order to get the 5G. 5G for OnePlus 8, it will be only on Verizon if you're in the US. if you're in the US and you're on T-Mobile, you can only buy the One Plus, not the One Plus. I'm sorry, the One Plus 8, not the One Plus 8 Pro. The One Plus 8 Pro is the one with 5G is available on Verizon. It's very, very weird how it is, but I believe OnePlus 8 OnePlus has an exclusive deal with Verizon. But you look at the specs of the OnePlus 8, and it's pretty spot on. You look at, I've read the reviews on Digital Trends and also on Flipboard. This is a fantastic looking device, like in terms of the cameras, in terms of the specs. Obviously, it's IP68 is water resistant, multiple colors. You know, I have a Samsung S10, and I actually think that for the price of a OnePlus 8, this is something that I'm pretty interested, that I would want to try out. Especially, it's going to cost way less than the Samsung Galaxy S10 and the S20, and the cameras are, you know, starting to get on par with each other. So this is something worth consideration.
And I think just that deal with Verizon will get into the hands of more people than it had been before. So I think that's good that we're going to be seeing that. And competition's always good for people, right? So OnePlus 8, Motorola also has an event coming up next week, so we'll find out more about their phones. But it's nice to see some product launches. Continuing on here to go through this and again, bring everybody up to date as quick as we can. There was a lot of news this week about a pretty amazing team up. It's Google and Apple, like two of the biggest rivals in tech, teaming up together. And this is in order to help battle what's going on with the coronavirus and with COVID-19. We see a lot of companies working on this, but this is for what's called contact tracing. So essentially it's this. They're working together to make sure that they can have interoperability between their two operating systems to track via Bluetooth. Essentially, it would work like this. It's going to allow phones to be able to ping other phones around them, and with an app that would be developed by a local health company, it would notify where you were for, say, 14 days. Then if you were to come into contact with somebody or somebody was to be diagnosed with COVID-19, then they could actually send out a ping to anybody who was pinged by that person's phone to let you know that you may have come into contact with somebody who is infected. So the whole goal is to do that and reduce, you know, the need for social distancing, the need for all the quarantine that we're going on. It's going to be coming out in May, but I think it's an interesting use case of just these two companies teaming up.
Right, and there's a few things to note about this. One, Google and Apple are not the only ones that are experimenting or trying or relying on contact tracing to do this. And MIT has one as well, and there's a bunch of developers that are starting to plan this. This is also a technology that's being embraced by multiple governments, multiple countries as well. Again, but also what's interesting to note is that with Google and Apple, there's a huge reach. I mean, there's billions of people that have either an iOS or an Android device.
Right.
You know, but this is only going to be
virtually everybody.
Virtually everybody, yes, and this is completely opt-in by voluntary. So in terms of people, individuals have to voluntarily share whether they've been diagnosed with COVID-19 or anything like that. And using Bluetooth, that's going to supposedly help ease any privacy concerns, because they're not tracking your specific location. This is all going to be anonymized data that public health officials, not individual companies or anybody else, will have access. So if I happen to be near you, Greg, it's not going to tell me, hey, Greg has COVID-19. It's just going to tell me somebody that I've been near has this information, has been diagnosed with this. And contact tracing is going to help to kind of track the spread of coronavirus, but it's not a cure-all. It's not something that's going to treat it and solve our problems. So there's more testing is obviously needed, and a vaccine is needed, but this is to help public health officials to really understand what the heck is going on with the coronavirus pandemic, and make moves to either accelerate to further shelter in place or to take some other means.
Right. I mean, it can be extremely beneficial to be able to track this, and with Google and Apple being these two giant companies that are doing this, I think that certainly can speed things along with that. But we've got articles at Flipboard and digitaltrends.com, covering all of this that people can go take a look at. Continuing on here, I know we need to bounce through these pretty quick because we don't want to get our breaking news. Just when it comes to streaming entertainment, something we're all getting into right now, I'll just let everybody know this interesting development from Hollywood, from the standpoint of Universal's Trolls World Tour, which made a digital digital debut. So it's the first one to release completely on digital video on demand. And it did pretty well. It did about $40 million, which is a pretty good start. To compare that, I think it was Avengers Age of Ultron. That one, I believe it was like 30 million when it debuted on video on demand. So this is even bigger than that. Granted, this is the first time. This doesn't have a theater run, but could be a sign of things to come when it comes to some of the big Hollywood production companies of how do they recoup some of their money without having theaters open. So there's that. And then the other thing here too, just to go through these quickly, is the launch of Peacock. Ken, have you started watching Peacock yet?
So it turns out, so I have Comcast, and I actually tried using the voice control to access Peacock, and it turns out that I can't get access to it. It's not available to me yet, which is weird. So Comcast and NBC have a deal. I'm pretty sure they're owned by Comcast owns NBC, and so Comcast subscribers, those with Xfinity, X1, or Flex, are supposed to have access to this. But apparently, when it's supposed to have debuted earlier this week, there's actually a delay of approximately 2 weeks, according to reports, for Comcast subscribers to actually have access to that. So when I tried it out yesterday, I got this error message on my TV saying, "Hey, check back later. It's not available to you yet." So I actually don't know, haven't had the firsthand impressions or experience using Peacock. I mean, it sounds interesting, but I can't honestly give you my take on whether it's good or not. I'm looking forward to the shows. Saved by the Bell. I saw the trailer for the new Saved by the Bell reboot. Okay, we'll see how that goes. I did enjoy it back in the day, but I don't know about reboots this time. But fan of watching all the Law and Order episodes that I can get, and anything else on NBC. So we'll see. Maybe in a couple of weeks, we can come back and see. Hey, is this good? I'll talk about Peacock. You can give me your thoughts about Quibi. How about that?
Right, okay. All right, fair enough. We can do that exchange. I'm definitely on that. So Peacock eventually going to have 3 different tiers, too, for people to get access to it, and then The Office. Okay, final thing here, just to make this announcement, and this is breaking news as of right this second. We knew that SpaceX was planning to send actual astronauts up to the International Space Station, and we do have... dang it, I'm going to sneeze right in the middle of this. I was really trying to fight that. The breaking news is that they have set the launch date of May 27th, and that is when they're going to be actually setting up 3 different astronauts in the Crew Dragon spacecraft. I think it's awesome that they set the date. I think that's a bold date to set. I'm kind of surprised they didn't delay this, given everything else that is going on, but it seems like they're confident that this is going to be the time where the first time where astronauts will be set up on a private spacecraft to the International Space Station. Pretty huge development.
Right, and this is this shows that SpaceX is pretty far ahead compared to Blue Origin and all the other space companies that are out there. And so this is, we've talked about this many times already in terms of like SpaceX is sending people either to the International Space Station, they're trying to send people to Mars, or they're sending tourists out into orbit. But this is the first time, we've been talking about all these different tests that they've had with their rockets that will propel cargo into space, and then the rockets will safely land back on Earth. So, but this time, human beings are going to be on this vehicle, on this space vehicle. So, will this, fingers crossed that this turns out well. These are actual astronauts. I don't believe these are the tourists. So, but this is on SpaceX's Dragon rocket. So this is going to be a pretty momentous time, especially for the fact this is the first time in a decade that it's going to be launching from U.S. soil as opposed to be launching from Kazakhstan. And interesting to note, the timing is also coincidental because we had astronauts that safely landed back on Earth today that landed in Kazakhstan from the International Space Station.
Yeah, so 3 down today, and I think to correct what I said earlier, I believe it's 2 astronauts that are going up on this rocket, at least as far as the announcement that I'm seeing. But yeah, definitely going to be interesting. That's May 27th, so we'll have all kinds of more information coming out on that. Going to be a pretty exciting day when that does come around. And Ken, as always, I want to say thank you for joining us. Always fun to talk about this. There is so much going on, but stay safe, and I will talk to you next week.
Sounds good. See you then.
All right, if I can, again, hit subscribe to Tech Briefs too, wherever you get podcasts. There's an audio version of this show, so that way you can stay up to date too with the news all the time. So, all right, here is what's going on. I want to say thank you to everybody who joined us. We broadcast live every single weekday, so if you're finding us for the first time, hit that subscribe button. If this is your 100th time that you watched us, thanks for being here. And we will be here throughout everything, broadcasting live for you. So again, every weekday, 9 a.m. Pacific, 9 Eastern. You can follow along. Coming up next week, we've got all kinds of things we'll be talking about. Lots of amazing guests. We'll keep you up to date on everything that's going on with tech. We've got John Velasco with some smart home news. We'll have Luke Larson with some computing news. And of course, so we'll be covering what's going on with Motorola next week and all the stuff as it happens live right here. That's what we do. So I thank everybody for joining us. I'm Greg Nibbler. Stay safe this weekend. I'll see you right back here on Monday with another edition of Digital Trends Live.